With the inauguration of Donald Trump less than 24 hours away, Labour's Mayor of London went on, and in my view, an all-out, unhinged attack on the President-elect. Sadiq Khan, in an article written for The Guardian this weekend, has compared democratically elected leaders like Donald Trump to the fascist regimes of the 1930s. Yeah, you heard that right. He's throwing around Nazi comparisons to attack political opponents who don't share his views. In my opinion, this is not only irresponsible, it's downright dangerous and inflammatory. In his article, Khan claims we need to defend our democracy and enhance the welfare of our communities. Of course, he goes on to praise his own policies of free school meals, fare freezes, and the 50,000 council homes built since he became mayor. But it seems like the mayor has selective memory, because he forgot to mention the millions blown on renaming tube lines and the thousands spent on woke statues in Trafalgar Square. Ironically, I'd say these are all left-wing populist policies, aren't they, Mr. Mayor? In what way are they enhancing the welfare of communities? If anything, they've been seen by many as completely divisive. And while Khan's out pretending to be some kind of political martyr for democracy, he's unashamedly dodging the real crisis facing London. Just a few days ago, he couldn't even define or answer a straightforward question about grooming gangs in London.
I asked you this question last week and you found every which way but not to answer it. Just how many grooming gangs have we got in London?
Avoiding a misunderstanding, can she define what she means by that?
Yes, if you look at what's gone on in Rotherham, where there are people taking young girls, grooming them for sex, that is what I'm talking about.
We know in London there are issues about exploitation of young people, but they're not as defined by the member in her definition of what those types of gangs are.
Yeah, all while, under his watch, a rape is reported every hour in London, and knife crime has doubled in his first term. These are real issues affecting real people. Nobody gives a toss about the renaming of the underground. They just want to live in a safe city. But maybe it's important that the mayor is reminded of his place. He is a regional mayor of a city within the UK with layers of more important diplomats, world leaders and governments in front of him. And for all intents and purposes, I'd assume to Donald Trump and the rest of the world, he's considered an absolute nobody. In fact, even the Labour government's Treasury Secretary, Darren Jones, slapped down Sadiq's statement. What our once great capital city desperately needs is someone who's going to tackle real issues head on, not someone who I believe is hiding behind seemingly hysterical, inflammatory language and left-wing populism. Well, to talk about this a little bit further, I'm joined now by former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards. Peter, you don't think Khan's done anything wrong, do you?
We've all got a responsibility to use language carefully, but Sadiq Khan, first of all, he's got a personal mandate of over 1 million votes, one of the largest in Europe. And secondly, specifically on this point about the far right, Donald Trump, I wouldn't call Donald Trump a fascist. I would just call him someone who's deeply distasteful and sexist and at times bigoted. But for example, the ban on people from Muslim nations entering America, last time was the president. Donald Trump has also retweeted videos from Britain First, a far-right outfit. He has ties and links to some deeply unpleasant organisations and has been behind some deeply unpleasant policies. It's quite right that the Mayor of London, who's a figurehead and does have a national platform, is allowed to speak out about that.
Well, I mean, look, he's defined Donald Trump as fascist or, as part of a surge of fascism. He clearly doesn't understand what the word fascism even means, does he? Because democratic elections are not fascism, are they? Do you think he just doesn't know the definition of the word?
Well, I wouldn't use that word, but Donald Trump clearly has given cover to the far right. Remember, he's retweeted far-right videos.
Peter. Far-right and fascist are not the same thing. There's no clear definition of the word far-right. It's used to describe anybody and their dog these days. When I was talking about whether Sadiq Khan knows the definition of fascism or he doesn't know it, whether he knows it at all.
Well, he does, and you might be talking about someone's dog, but I'm not talking about anyone's dog. You have to bear in mind, Sadiq Khan is entitled to speak out. It's just a fact that Donald Trump has given cover to far-right organisations. But also, Sadiq Khan has been subject to bigotry and Islamophobia for much of his working political life. So why would it not be appropriate for him to speak out? He's entitled to his views, and he's got a mandate to do so.
OK, well, yeah, he's entitled to say what he wants. I believe in his right to free speech. But he's very critical of people using inflammatory language. And now he's comparing democracies to Nazism in the 1930s. He can't define what a grooming gang is. He had 10 instances that I saw on the Greater London Assembly's website where he still can't answer the question, or at least runs around it or passes it off to the Met. Someone help me here. I mean, he's using inflammatory language. Surely, let's just start on that. Calling democracies Nazis is mad.
I haven't been watching London mayoral questions. I follow politics very closely, but watching the GLA questions is perhaps slightly beyond even my own level of being a political anorak. But again, Sadiq Khan is completely entitled to speak out about Donald Trump giving cover to the far right. Some might say he's used inflammatory language. I don't think he has. And, bear in mind this other point. Sadiq Khan was elected a third time. She's been re-elected twice. That's never happened to a London mayor before. And secondly, in every poll you look at, British voters are deeply uncomfortable and opposed to Donald Trump and his policies.
Well, I mean, Sadiq Khan's, said that Donald Trump is a populist and has populist policies. Sadiq Khan has populist policies. Surely they're just left-wing populism, aren't they? They're just a different brand of populism. Renaming the tube to cost of millions.
No.
Yeah, of course it is. What's the point? That's just trying to make a marketing ploy to appease the left-wing. That's populism, is it not?
No, I mean, it's by the way, it's on a point of pedantry. It's the London Overground rather than the Tube.
Well, okay, we can be pedantic about but I'm trying to make sure the audience understand what we're talking about. But yes, not for the London-centric.
On a train line within London, I travel on the Orange Line every day. No one cares at all about the name of it. I think it's a good thing to do, but you couldn't have called that populist. You could call it the opposite, technical, or a point of principle that I think has validity, but I suspect it won't be noticed by many people. So no.
Oh, I think it was noticed by a lot of people, Peter. The whole country was talking about it. The only people that actually liked it were the left. That's populism. It's left-wing populism.
Well, again, there are other perspectives beyond those in this channel. I've been a parliamentary candidate several times, campaigned for Labour for about 20 years. No one has ever mentioned on the doorstep the names of London train lines.
Yeah, well, there we go. Anyway, look, thank you, Peter, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And let's get the thoughts of my panel. We've got the head of communications at Popular Conservatism, Annuncia Rees-Mogg. Annunciata, I'm going to get your name right tonight. I'm so sorry, Rees-Mogg. Anyway, fitness expert and journalist, dubbed the Green Goddess, Diana Moran, and former Labour Special Advisor, Paul Richards. I mean, look, Paul, Sadiq Khan has been mayor for a very, very long time. I believe a lot of his policies are populist. Donald Trump has come under fire from Sadiq Khan today, calling him, part of this resurgence of fascism. He's a democratically elected leader. Sadiq Khan's wrong, isn't he?
Well, Sadiq Khan's also a democratically elected leader, and I have to say it's not language I would have used, because I think calling each other fascists or Nazis, or that's not the kind of discourse I personally favour. But the broader point he's making about democracy being a fragile thing, a relatively new thing in most of the Western democracies, we've only had it for 100 years here, and it can be taken away again, I think is a valid point, because unless you are eternally vigilant and you are constantly refreshing your democracy, it may well disappear.
I mean, Annunciata, listen, Donald Trump just won a landslide election. This is so deeply out of touch with reality, isn't it?
And not just Donald Trump, because in fact, Sadiq Khan branded most of the West in the same way, and are people tending across numerous countries to vote in a more right-wing way? Yes. Is that because the left has failed them and proven yet again it's not got the interests of the people at heart? Yes, probably true. But I think the inflammatory language of an elected leader, as Paul calls him rightly, saying the far right is on the march, these are deeply worrying times, increasingly finding the echoes of the 1920s and 30s in the present day, the spectre of resurgent fascism haunts the West. To ward off the far right, we must be unflinching. This is not the language of a moderate leader. It is clearly inflammatory. It is, after all, Sadiq Khan who gave permission for a 20-foot blimp of Trump as a baby to be paraded around the streets of London when he came to visit. I think making the relationship even poorer, just as Trump is revolutionising the future of our relationship with America, is very worrying.
It's very worrying stuff. Diana, listen.
I think it's very worrying. They've obviously got a total dislike of one another, disdain for one another.
Clearly. But, Is this just a distraction from the real issues, Diana? Is this a distraction by Sadiq Khan? Because we've got knife crime soaring, we've got sexual assaults, one rape reported every hour.
Yes, of course, he's got that as well. But what worries me, I'm an old person, and, the Nazi business was there when I was a young girl. And to hear talk of all that sort of thing coming, being talked about now, it's just dreadful to me. Dreadful.
Paul, final comment to you on this one. Sadiq Khan, of course, has made a big song and dance about this. He's gone out and done it right on the weekend.
Well, look,
the inauguration. Is he just trying to scupper?
This is the home of. This is not the home of free speech, isn't it? I mean, he's entitled to write an article in whatever newspaper it was.
It wasn't. I mean, Keir Starmer's doing his best. I mean, the Treasury Secretary came out and slammed him.
Well, I mean, Darren Jones made an equally good point, which is that the language was not the right language. He's making a good point. He's made it in a bad way. The timing's not great, but he's entitled to do it.
OK, look, we'll leave it there. We've got more coming up with my great panel very soon.